On the most exclusive streets of Manhattan, where every square foot costs more than an average home, walks Sebastian Monterey, heir to a hotel empire valued at $800 million. His $3,000 Italian suit contrasts dramatically with a hunched figure approaching him from the shadows of an alley. It's Tuesday morning, 7:45 a.m. Sebastian talks on his latest model phone, coordinating the purchase of his fifth hotel in the Hamptons. His leather shoes shine under the golden light of the New York sunrise, while his footsteps resonate with the confidence of someone who has never known scarcity. Less than 10 meters away, an elderly man approaches slowly. His clothes are torn, his beard gray and unkempt. His trembling hands extend a plastic cup with some coins. The homeless man's eyes, surprisingly clear despite the circumstances, fix on Sebastian with a mixture of hope and resignation. "Excuse me, sir. Could you help me with some money for breakfast?" Sebastian doesn't even look up. He continues his phone conversation as if the man were invisible. His words on the phone resonate with coldness. "Yes, we're buying an entire building. I don't care they have to evict the current tenants. Business is business." The homeless man insists gently, "Please, sir, just some coins. I haven't eaten in 2 days." This time Sebastian does look at him, but his expression is one of absolute disgust. He covers his phone's microphone and responds with contempt. "Can't you see I'm busy? Go find a job instead of bothering productive people." The elderly man lowers his head, but before walking away, he says something that Sebastian doesn't quite catch clearly. Something about remembering and gratitude. Sebastian resumes his conversation and continues walking toward his office on the 47th floor of Monterey Tower. From the tinted glass windows of his office, he can see the entire city spread out before him like a chessboard where he moves the pieces. During the following hours, Sebastian immerses himself in his business. He approves of firing of 200 employees to optimize costs, rejects 3 charity proposals from his assistant, and plans the demolition of an affordable apartment building to construct a new luxury complex. At 2:30 p.m., his personal assistant, Maria Elena, enters his office with a strange expression on her face. "Mr. Monterey, there's someone who wants to see you. He says it's very urgent and that you know him. I don't have appointments until 4. Have him make an appointment like everyone else." "Sir, he insists it's about your father." Sebastian looks up sharply. His father, Roberto Monterey, had died 5 years ago in a car accident. No one spoke about him without his explicit permission. "Who is it?" "An elderly man, sir. He's in the main lobby." Sebastian goes down the lobby with equal parts curiosity and annoyance. Upon arriving, he finds himself face to face with the same homeless man from the morning. But now the man is cleaned up, wearing clean though simple clothes, and in his hands he holds a cardboard box yellow with time. "What are you doing here? How did you get past security?" The man smiles sadly. "Your father taught me that there's always a way to get where you need to be, if your purpose is noble." "My father? You didn't know my father." "My name is Eduardo Sanchez. I worked for your father for 15 years, until a week before his accident." Sebastian frowns. The name doesn't sound familiar, but something in the man's eyes generates a strange sensation. Eduardo continues, "I was the maintenance supervisor of the central building. Your father came every day to ask me how my family was, how my sick daughter was. When she needed an expensive operation, your father paid for it without me asking." "That's impossible. My father never..." "Never what, Sebastian? Never helped people? Never cared about his employees?" Eduardo opens the cardboard box. Inside are photographs, handwritten letters, and small Christmas gifts. Look at these photos. In the first image, Roberto Monterey, dressed in casual clothes, is sharing lunch with Eduardo and other maintenance employees in the building's basement. In another, he's visiting a girl in a hospital with balloons and toys in his hands. "This is my daughter, Carmen. Your father visited her in the hospital every week during her leukemia treatment. He read her stories, brought her candy. She called him Grandpa Roberto. Sebastian takes the photographs with trembling hands. He had never seen these images. He had never seen his father smile this way. Why didn't he ever tell me about any of this? Because your father didn't do good to receive recognition. He did it because he understood that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in lives touched. Eduardo pulls out a letter with the company letterhead. It's a job recommendation written by Roberto for Eduardo, dated just 3 days before the accident. Your father knew I was being investigated by the board of directors. Some executives wanted to cut maintenance staff. He wrote this letter to protect my job and my colleagues. Sebastian reads the letter. In it, his father describes Eduardo as one of the most upright men I've ever known, and an example of dedication and honesty that every company should value. If you're enjoying this story, leave me a comment telling me what you think will happen next. After your father's accident, the new administration, well, you took over, and one of the first decisions was to reduce maintenance staff by 60%. I was part of that cut. Eduardo pulls out more papers from a box. There are medical receipts, hospital bills, all with paid stamps and Roberto Monterey's signature. Your father didn't just pay for Carmen's operation. He paid for her complete treatment, her medications, her recovery therapies. He even established a fund for her college education. Sebastian sits heavily in one of the lobby chairs. His world is beginning to shake. Why are you telling me this now? Why didn't you come before? I tried, Sebastian. For years I tried to talk to you. Your assistants had orders not to let former employees looking for favors through. Today was my last day in New York. My wife is sick, and we're moving to live with my daughter in Oregon. Eduardo shows another photograph. In it, Roberto is hugging a boy about 8 years old. The boy wears a small suit identical to Roberto's. This is you, the day your father introduced me to his pride and joy. You were 8 years old. You told me you wanted to be like your dad when you grew up. Sebastian recognizes a photograph immediately. He remembered that day vaguely, but had never known who the man working with his father was. Your father always talked about you. He said he hoped that when you grew up, you would remember that money was just a tool, not an end, that he hoped you would use your position to help others, as he tried to do every day. Tears began to pool in Sebastian's eyes. The image he had of his father as a cold and calculating businessman is completely crumbling. Eduardo takes out the last item from the box, a sealed letter with the name Sebastian written in his father's familiar handwriting. Your father asked me to give you this if something happened to him, and if someday I felt you had lost your way. Sebastian opens a letter with trembling fingers. My dear Sebastian, if Eduardo is giving you this letter, it means I have departed and that you have probably taken a path I worried you might take. I built this empire not to demonstrate my power, but to have the necessary resources to change lives. Every hotel we built employed hundreds of families. Every investment we made was thought of not only in terms of profits, but in the positive impact we could have. Eduardo is an example of the extraordinary people who worked alongside us. His dedication, his honesty, his love for his family taught me that true success is measured in how much you can lift others up, not in how much you can accumulate for yourself. If you are reading this, I fear you have forgotten these lessons. But I also have faith that the good heart I saw in you when you were a child is still there, waiting to be rediscovered. Money without purpose is just paper. Power without compassion is just tyranny. Wealth without generosity is just selfishness. Eduardo has a bank account that I established for him. The number is at the end of this letter. It contains enough money for him and his family to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. He never knew it, because I knew his pride wouldn't allow him to accept it. I wanted you to give it to him when the time was right. More importantly, Eduardo knows stories of kindness, generosity, and humanity that I lived, but that you never saw. Listen to him. Learn from him. Allow him to remind you who you were capable of being. Your father, who loved you more than his own success, Roberto Monterey. Sebastian finishes reading with tears flowing freely down his face. Eduardo remains silent, allowing the weight of the words to settle. I didn't know any of this. Your father was very discreet with his good deeds. He said that true charity is done in silence. Sebastian looks at Eduardo with new eyes. This man, whom he had treated with contempt that morning, had been like a second father to his real father. He had witnessed a version of Roberto Monterrey that he never knew. Eduardo, this morning I was terrible to you. I have no excuse. You don't need excuses. Sebastian, you need decisions. The question is, what are you going to do now with what you know? Eduardo hands him a worn business card. This is my address in Oregon. If you ever want to know more stories about your father, or if you decide you want to honor his memory the right way, you'll find me there. He stands up to leave, but Sebastian stops him. Wait, the bank account my father mentions in the letter. Sebastian, I didn't come here for money. I came because I promised your father that if I ever saw you had lost your way, I would try to help you find your way back. But you're living on the street. I saw how you were dressed this morning. Eduardo smiles sadly. I lost my apartment 3 months ago when the new owners tripled the rent. My wife is in an expensive nursing home because she has advanced Alzheimer's. I've been using all my savings to pay for her care. And still you came to help me? Your father taught me that helping others is a privilege, not a burden, regardless of your personal situation. Sebastian sits in the lobby for an hour after Eduardo leaves. Employees pass by him, some murmuring among themselves, wondering why their boss is crying in public. Finally, Sebastian returns to his office. But instead of sitting behind his imposing desk, he sits on the couch he had never used, from where he can see the photographs Eduardo left him. He calls Maria Elena. I want you to cancel all my appointments today. I also want you to search our human resources files from 5 years ago. I need a list of all employees who were fired during my first year as CEO. Sir, and I want you to contact our corporate foundation. We're going to reactivate all the social assistance programs that were canceled. During the following hours, Sebastian discovers a devastating truth. During his 5 years as CEO, he had systematically undone almost all of his father's philanthropic work. The student scholarship programs canceled, the medical emergency fund for employees eliminated, regular donations to children's hospitals suspended. He had turned his father's company into an efficient money-making machine, but had eliminated its soul in the process. That night, Sebastian doesn't return to his Manhattan penthouse. Instead, he drives to Queens, to the nursing home where Eduardo's wife is staying. The place is clean, but modest. Sebastian finds Eduardo in the waiting room, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair with a book in his lap. Eduardo. The elderly man wakes up startled. Sebastian, what are you doing here? I came to meet your wife, and to ask if you allow me to hear those stories about my father. Eduardo smiles, but there's caution in his eyes. It's 10 at night. She's already sleeping. Then I'll wait until tomorrow. If you don't mind, I'd like to stay here tonight. Sebastian, this is no place for her. Eduardo, for 5 years I've slept in a $30,000 bed in an apartment that costs more than most people earn in their entire lives. Tonight I want to sleep where I can remember what really matters. Eduardo looks at him for a long moment, then nods slowly. There's a cafeteria downstairs. They have terrible coffee, but it's hot. During the following hours, Eduardo tells Sebastian story after story about Roberto Monterrey. He tells him about the times his father visited sick employees in the hospital, about the secret university scholarships he'd paid for employees' children, about the times he personally helped families going through economic crises. Your father had a simple philosophy, says Eduardo while they share coffee in plastic cups. He said God doesn't give us resources to accumulate them, but to share them wisely. Was my father religious? Not in the traditional sense, but he was spiritual. He deeply believed in the responsibility that comes with privilege. At 6 a.m., Eduardo takes Sebastian to meet his wife, Carmen. Although the disease has taken its toll, she still has moments of clarity. Carmen, I want to introduce you to someone. This is Sebastian, Roberto's son. The woman's eyes light up with a flash of recognition. Roberto? Is Grandpa Roberto here? Sebastian feels a knot in his throat. No, ma'am, but I'm his son. Ah, Carmen smiles. Roberto always talked about his boy. He said he was very smart and that someday he would do wonderful things to help people. Eduardo whispers in Sebastian's ear. She thinks you're still a child. For her, your father is still alive. Sebastian spent an hour talking with Carmen, listening to fragments of memories about his father that she still preserves. Each story is a new revelation about the man he thought he knew. When they leave Carmen's room, Sebastian makes a decision that will change his life forever. Eduardo, I want to make things right, but I don't know where to start. The first step is always the hardest, but also the most important. I want you to come back to work for the company, not as a maintenance employee, but as Director of Corporate Social Responsibility. Eduardo looks at him surprised. Sebastian, I don't have formal education for. You have something more valuable than any degree. You have the heart and wisdom that my father respected. You'll help me rebuild what I destroyed. What about your board directors? Your shareholders? They won't understand this sudden change. Sebastian smiles for the first time in years with genuine joy. Then I'll explain to them that I'm returning to the company's foundational values, the values my father established and that I forgot. Do you think Sebastian can really change? Let me know in the comments what you think about his transformation. The following months aren't easy. Sebastian faces resistance from the board directors, criticism from investors, and skepticism from employees who have seen empty promises before. But Sebastian is determined. With Eduardo as his guide, he begins to rebuild the company from the inside out. He reinstates all the employee benefit programs he had canceled. He establishes a medical emergency fund more robust than the one his father had created. He creates a university scholarship program for employees' children that covers not only tuition, but complete living expenses. More importantly, he begins to know his employees personally. He visits all the hotel chain properties, not to inspect, but to listen. He learns names, meets families, understands challenges. The transformation doesn't go unnoticed. Employees, initially skeptical, begin to respond positively. Productivity increases. Staff turnover decreases dramatically, and customer satisfaction reaches record levels. A year after that life-changing encounter, Sebastian is again walking to the streets of Manhattan. But this time he's not talking on the phone about acquisitions. This time he's accompanied by Eduardo, returning from visiting a new community center that the Monterey Foundation has just inaugurated. Do you know what I'm most proud of? Sebastian tells Eduardo as they walk. What? That when my father sees me again, he won't have to be ashamed of the man I became. Eduardo smiles. Your father was never ashamed of you, Sebastian. He was just waiting for you to remember who you really were. As they walk, a young woman with a small child approaches them. Sebastian immediately recognizes Eduardo's clear eyes in the young woman's face. Carmen, Mr. Monterey. The young woman smiles radiantly. Eduardo has told me so much about you and everything you're doing. Carmen, Eduardo's daughter, is now a pediatric doctor, thanks to the education Roberto Monterey had financed years earlier. The child with her is her 3-year-old son. Eduardo, have you told your grandson about Grandpa Roberto? Every day, Eduardo responds proudly. I tell him about the man who taught us that true success is measured in changed lives, not in bank figures. The child looks at Sebastian curiously. Did you know Grandpa Roberto? Sebastian kneels to be at the child's height. He was my dad, and he taught me that the most important thing in life is to help others, especially when they can do something good for us in return. Like my grandpa Eduardo? Exactly like your grandpa Eduardo. Sebastian stands up and looks around. The streets of Manhattan are still the same, but he sees them completely differently now. He sees opportunities to help instead of obstacles to avoid. He sees people with stories instead of inconveniences that interrupt his day. Eduardo, there's something I want to ask you. Tell me, that day when I approached you on the street for the first time, you knew who I was, didn't you? Eduardo smiles mysteriously. Your father had photographs of you in his office. I had watched you grow up through those photos for years. Why didn't you tell me who you were from the beginning? Because you needed to arrive at the truth through your own path. If I had told you immediately who I was, you would have listened out of obligation or guilt. You needed to listen out of love. Sebastian nods, understanding the wisdom in Eduardo's words. Do you know what's most ironic about this whole story? What? That I thought I was ignoring a homeless man, when I was actually ignoring a treasure, a man who knew my father better than I did, who had the keys to understanding who he really was, and who could teach me who I could become. Eduardo puts a hand on Sebastian's shoulder. Your father always said that God puts the right people in our path exactly when we need them. Sometimes they come disguised as obvious blessings. Other times they come disguised as challenges, or even as those who seem to need our help. Do you think my father knew this would happen? Your father was a wise man. He knew that sooner or later, life would present you with an opportunity to choose between money and humanity. He just hoped that when that moment came, you would choose correctly. As the sun begins to set over Manhattan, Sebastian, Eduardo, Carmen, and the little one walk together toward Monterey Tower. But it's no longer just a corporate tower. Now it's a symbol of a company that has remembered its true purpose. In the lobby, where a year ago Sebastian had cried upon discovering the truth about his father, there is now a plaque dedicated to Roberto Monterey. It doesn't speak of his financial achievements or business success. Instead, it simply says, Roberto Monterey, 1952 to 2018, a man who understood that true success is measured not in what you accumulate, but in what you give, not in the heights you reach, but in how many people you help climb with you. Below the plaque is a photograph of Roberto embracing Eduardo and other employees at a company Christmas party. Do you know what I think now when I see this plaque? Sebastian asks Eduardo, What? That my father isn't really dead. He lives through every life he touched, through every person he helped, through every act of kindness he inspired. Eduardo nods. And now he also lives through you and through decisions you make every day. Sebastian looks up toward the heights of the building that bears his last name. Eduardo, there's something else I want to do. What? I want to change the building's name. It will no longer be Monterey Tower. It will be Roberto Monterey Tower of Hope. And I want it to become not just corporate offices, but a community center, free medical clinics on the first floors, educational programs, job training centers. Eduardo smiles with tears in his eyes. Your father will be very proud. 5 years later, Sebastian Monterey is recognized not as one of the richest businessmen in the country, but as one of the most generous. His company, while still profitable, is known primarily for its positive social impact. Eduardo, now officially retired but still active as an advisor, spends his days dividing time between caring for his wife Carmen, who unfortunately has progressed in her illness, and telling stories to his grandson about the two men who changed his life, Roberto and Sebastian Monterey. The story of Sebastian's transformation has become a case study in business schools, not as an example of financial success, but as an example of purposeful leadership. But perhaps most importantly, Sebastian never again walks through the streets of Manhattan talking on the phone, ignoring the people who cross his path. Now he walks with open eyes, an available heart, and hands ready to help, because he learned that life's most important encounters often come disguised as minor interruptions, and that the difference between wealth and true abundance lies in understanding that what you give always returns multiplied, not necessarily in money, but in meaning, purpose, and genuine joy. As the new mission of Monterey Company states, we don't build hotels, we build temporary homes where people can rest while pursuing their dreams. We don't employ workers, we elevate lives. We don't generate profits, we create hope. And it all began with a 30-second encounter on a Manhattan sidewalk between a millionaire who had forgotten his humanity and a homeless man who had never lost his. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to change the course of our life.